5 negotiation tricks that make people say yes. Part 2. Have you ever agreed to something and only later realized you were being influenced? It happens more often than we think. Sometimes the pressure isn't obvious. There's no argument, no conflict, just small psychological moves that quietly shape the outcome. That's exactly what negotiation psychology is all about. In the first part, we explored 5 powerful negotiation techniques that shape conversations in subtle ways. Today, we're diving into 5 more psychological negotiation tricks that work even when you know they're being used. 6. The door-in-the-face technique. Imagine someone asks you for something big. They ask to borrow your car for an entire month. You immediately say no. It sounds too inconvenient, too risky, too much. Then they follow up with a second request. Okay, what about just this weekend? Suddenly, that feels reasonable. This is called the door-in-the-face technique. The idea is simple. You ask for something large first, expecting rejection. Then you follow with what you actually wanted. The second request seems smaller by comparison, even if it's still significant. This works because of something called reciprocity. When someone lowers their request, your brain interprets it as a compromise. And when someone compromises, you feel pressure to do the same. This technique is used in many real-world situations. A company might first propose a long-term contract. When you hesitate, they offer a shorter one. A seller might start with a higher price. Then they lower it slightly. You feel like you're getting a better deal, even though the second offer may have been their plan all along. The key to this technique is making the first request large enough to be rejected, but not so extreme that it sounds ridiculous. If it feels unrealistic, you lose credibility. But if it sounds ambitious yet possible, the second request lands much more smoothly. The rejection isn't a failure. It's part of the strategy. 7. BATNA, your hidden negotiation power. One of the biggest factors in negotiation isn't what you say. It's what you're willing to walk away to. BATNA stands for Best Alternative to a Negotiated Agreement. In simple terms, it's your backup plan. If this deal doesn't work, what happens next? If you're negotiating a job offer, do you have another opportunity? If you're selling your car, do you have other buyers interested? When you have a strong alternative, your confidence changes. You don't feel pressure to accept bad terms. You don't rush decisions. You don't compromise too quickly. And the other person can often sense this. Confidence changes the tone of negotiation. You speak calmly. You hold your ground. You don't appear desperate. On the other hand, when you don't have alternatives, the pressure builds. You start making concessions. You accept terms you wouldn't normally accept. This is why preparation is so important. Strong negotiators don't just prepare arguments. They prepare options. They apply for multiple jobs. They talk to multiple buyers. They explore several possibilities. This gives them leverage before the negotiation even begins. Because when you don't need the deal, you're in the best position to get a better one. If you're finding these negotiation techniques helpful, consider subscribing and leaving a like. 8. The Nibble. One more small request. Imagine you've spent time negotiating a deal. You've discussed the price. You've agreed on the main terms. Everything is ready to be finalized. Then, just before finishing, the other person asks for one small thing. Could you include free delivery? Would you add an extended warranty? Could you handle the installation? It seems small compared to the entire deal. And that's why people often agree. This is called the Nibble. It works because by this point, both sides are mentally committed. You've invested time and effort. You've imagined the outcome. You're ready to finish. Starting over would feel frustrating. So a small extra request seems easier to accept. This technique is widely used in sales and business. And the key is timing. The request comes at the very end, when people are most likely to say yes just to close the deal. The Nibble works best when the request is small and reasonable. If the request is too large, it can damage trust. But when done correctly, it adds extra value without reopening the negotiation. 9. The Ultimatum. Sometimes negotiations drag on. There's endless back and forth and no clear decision. That's when someone introduces an ultimatum. This is my final offer. Take it or leave it. This is non-negotiable. An ultimatum creates urgency. It forces a decision. When used correctly, it can break deadlocks and move negotiations forward. However, this technique comes with risk. If you give an ultimatum too early, you may appear aggressive or unreasonable. If you're bluffing and the other person calls your bluff, you lose credibility. That's why ultimatums work best when you actually have leverage. If you're prepared to walk away, your ultimatum carries weight. If you're not ready to lose the deal, it can backfire. The most effective negotiators use ultimatums carefully and rarely, because once you draw a line, you must be ready to stand behind it. 10. Trading, not giving. One of the biggest mistakes in negotiation is giving concessions for free. When someone asks for a discount, faster delivery, or better terms, many people agree just to keep things moving. But experienced negotiators do something different. They trade. Instead of saying yes immediately, they make their concession conditional. If I can lower the price, would you be willing to commit today? I can offer that if we increase the order size. Now the conversation becomes balanced. Every concession is exchanged. This changes the psychology of negotiation. When people receive something for free, they often assume there's more available. They keep asking. But when they must trade for concessions, they value them more. Trading also creates fairness. Both sides feel like they're moving toward each other. And when both sides feel invested, agreements become stronger and more stable. Negotiation isn't just about numbers. It's about psychology, perception, and timing. These 10 techniques shape conversations in subtle ways. Sometimes they influence decisions before you even realize what's happening. The more you understand them, the more control you gain. Not to manipulate others, but to recognize when these tactics are used on you. And once you start noticing them, you'll see them everywhere. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more content about psychology, human behavior, and hidden influence. And tell me in the comments, which negotiation trick surprised you the most? Because the next time you negotiate something, you might notice one of these techniques in action. And this time, you'll see it coming.